हेलो व्यूअर्स, वेलकम टू यूपीएससी क्रॉनिकल्स। और आप देख रहे हैं क्रिटिकल एनालिसिस सीरीज, जिसमें हम यूपीएससी से रिलेटेड टॉपिक्स को एक क्रिटिकल लेंस से समझने की कोशिश करते हैं। आज की हमारी टॉपिक है ग्रॉस डोमेस्टिक प्रोडक्ट और जीडीपी एज ए मेजर ऑफ इकोनॉमिक डेवलपमेंट। बिफोर वी मूव ऑन टू द क्रिटिकल एस्पेक्ट, let's first understand what is GDP and why it is considered a vital tool for economic development. Gross domestic product or GDP measures total value of final goods and services produced in a country in a given year. ये चार फ्रेज मैंने लिखे हैं बोर्ड पे। टोटल वैल्यू, फाइनल गुड्स एंड सर्विसेज in a country in a given year. These four phrases are crucial to understand GDP. Let's understand them one by one. First, understand in a country. GDP will include the value of goods and services produced within a territory. So let's assume this is a territory. So goods produced outside this territory will not be considered in calculating GDP. Goods and services produced inside this territory will be considered in counting GDP. It doesn't matter who is producing goods or services. The goods and services has to be produced within the territory, not outside it. Goods and services produced should be final, and final goods and services means those goods and services which is ready for consumption in the market. जो मार्केट में, बाजार में कंजम्पशन के लिए अवेलेबल है, वैसे गुड्स एंड सर्विसेज को हम फाइनल गुड्स एंड सर्विसेज कहते हैं. लेट्स अंडरस्टैंड दिस विद एन एग्जांपल. शुगर कैन से शुगर बनाते हैं, और अगर इस शुगर को, इस चीनी को बाजार में बेचते हैं, then this sugar becomes final good and service. Why? Because it is ready for consumption in the market. But if this sugar is used by a tea seller to prepare tea, and this tea is sold in the market, then this sugar will not be considered final, because this is used in further process of production. So in this case, sugar becomes intermediate goods. Intermediate goods are those goods which are used in the further process of production, and final goods are those goods which are ready for consumption in the market. So in the second example, tea is the final good, not the sugar. Sugar in this case is the intermediate goods. In the first example, when sugar is directly sold in the market, then sugar becomes final good. And total value means quantity of goods and services produced multiplied by its price. And if we sum up all the goods and services produced within the economy, then it becomes the total value. And GDP is calculated for a fixed period. It can be calculated for quarterly period. It can be calculated for half yearly period. And it can be calculated annually. All these three data are available with us. So GDP is calculated within a time period, for a time period. So gross domestic product measures the total value of final goods and services produced in a territory in a particular year or particular time period, and is widely used as a proxy for economic performance. It is used as proxy for economic performance because GDP value gives us a data, a value, a number, and this number is used for comparing economies all over the world. However, while GDP growth is important, it does not fully capture inclusive growth, human welfare, or sustainability. But still, GDP is considered an important parameter an important tool to assess the economy. Why GDP growth is considered important? GDP growth is seen as desirable due to its potential to improve living standards through multiple channels. Number one, higher output and consumption. Rising GDP increases the availability of goods and services, improving access and consumption possibilities for the population. Number two, employment creation. Economic growth can stimulate savings and investment, leading to job creation and income generation. Number three, fiscal capacity of the state. Higher GDP expands the tax base of the government, enabling government to invest in infrastructure, health, education, and social welfare. Number four, technological progress and productivity. Growth provides resources for research and development, skill formation, and technological upgrades, raising long-term productive capacity. India's economy has continued to grow robustly, with real GDP estimated at 6.5% in fiscal year 2024-25 and projected to expand in 2025-26. The Asian Development Bank has recently raised India's growth forecast to 7.2% for fiscal year 26, reflecting strong consumption and investment dynamics. These factors explain why GDP growth is considered a necessary condition for development, but the question to be asked is it sufficient condition? That brings us to the critical aspect of GDP as a tool to assess development. Despite its advantage, GDP suffers from serious limitations in capturing inclusiveness and welfare. First, population growth and per capita income. India's GDP is growing, so is its population. High GDP growth alongside rapid population growth may fail to raise per capita income, limiting improvements in individual well-being, consumption, and saving. Second, disconnect from human development. GDP growth does not guarantee improvements in health, education, nutrition, or sanitation. Growth driven by capital-intensive industries, urban-centric services, or elite sectors may bypass basic human development needs. India's Human Development Index value rose to 0.685 in 2025, placing it 130th rank out of 193 countries. Inequality and exclusion. GDP does not reflect who benefits from growth. If women, scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, informal workers, or backward regions are excluded, growth may deepen income, gender, and regional inequalities, undermining social cohesion. Environmental degradation. GDP counts environmentally destructive activities as positive output. Growth based on polluting technologies, resource depletion, or ecological damage reduces long-term welfare and sustainability. And finally, neglect of quality of life. GDP ignores non-market activities, unpaid care work, social capital, and well-being, all of which are central to inclusive development. That brings us to the concluding part of this lecture. GDP growth is necessary but not sufficient for inclusive growth. While growth creates resources to distribute, it does not ensure equitable access, human development, or sustainability. For GDP growth to translate into inclusive development, it must be complemented by strong institutions promoting equity and social justice, investments in health, education, and skill development, policies ensuring participation of vulnerable groups, and environmentally sustainable growth strategies. Thus, GDP should be viewed as a means, not an end, in the pursuit of inclusive and sustainable development. So, I hope you have understood the critical aspect of GDP as a measure of economic growth. If you found this video to be useful, please subscribe to UPSC Chronicles and share this video with your friends and other aspirants whom you think should be benefited from these videos.